Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. And I have, when you, and I'm just bear with me for a second, when you start a podcast, we're at 500 plus episodes at this point. The number one thing you say is, oh my God, how am I going to get guests? Right? Like that's the number one thing you think about. Well, now I don't even have to, because Matt, Drinkwater, and Mandy, they just recommend people they run into. Oh, you'll vibe. And so this is one of those scenarios, right? And so what I do with my guests is I don't research them at all. I haven't looked at what you put in. I've literally barely perused your website for 2 seconds before this, because I like to be surprised along with the people that listen. So we have Teresa here, who got recommended by Mandy, who is across the pond. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means not here, okay? And you're in Europe. So how are you doing today?
I am really good. I am very excited about this conversation and this energy. I think it's going to be fun.
It's going to be great. So you have something on your website that I got to call you out for, right? Because I saw it.
Not a typo.
When you're saying dream job, dream company, that's a big claim. That's a big claim, right? So my question that I thought of for you is, how can somebody even begin to create their dream when they don't really know even who they are?
Oh, I love that. And do you know what? When I came up with this kind of statement that I've been using for the last couple of years, I almost feel like every time I say it, I have to caveat it, because it is such a big statement. And often it's used in quite a sleazy way, as if I'm going to teach them to make millions tomorrow and live on a yacht somewhere amazing. And so for me, that is the whole part of it. It's about the very first step of creating anything that you dream of is knowing and understanding what that might look like, but also understanding that can shift and change continuously. So what might be your idea of a dream today might not be the same in 5 years, 10 years time, because one of the things we talk about a lot, one of the things I share, is the fact that we're all in a season of our life. And we were just chatting before we got on about kids and responsibilities and all that sort of thing. When I started my business, I was a single mum to a 4-year-old. So my season of life looked very different to how it looks now, which meant what was important to me, what I wanted then, is not necessarily the same as today. Now, some things won't change. It'll be like your values and your core beliefs and things like that. But knowing that actually you know where you're focused and you know where you're going because you've done some work to understand it, but also knowing that you might get towards it and things might change and you might go, actually, this is no longer as important to me now, this is. But I think for me, the key thing is taking that time to understand you and what's important to you, but then having that strength and that kind of, characteristic of, I don't care what anybody else thinks. This is what I'm going to do because this is all that is important to me. And this is what I care about. So where other people might see the dream business as, a 7-8 figure business and living on a yacht or whatever, that's fine if that's their dream. But just because that isn't yours doesn't mean you don't need to feel that you're not successful because you don't have it. Because actually, when you are clear on what you want and what is important to you, then you are successful when you go after that.
One of the things that came up with my clients is what I call plateau thinking around goals, right? And what I mean by that is I can easily, as a client, you're my coach, and I can easily say oh, I want $50,000 a month, right? Whatever. Okay. I'm just using an arbitrary number. That's cool, but you don't even know if you really want that. So I got an idea. How about we get to 10,000? We'll take a breath and we'll decide what the next move is. Because what you need before the 10,000 and what you need after are two totally different things. And so when you create arbitrary, ridiculous goals that have no purpose to them or no structure, then you create loose thinking which then traps you in the shame cycle, which then traps you in mediocrity, which then traps you in a vicious cycle for years to go.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. Sort of, when it comes to things like goal setting, and I am a big fan of having a direction and setting a goal, but often they think that's what they want because that's the thing that they're being told, or that's the thing that someone that they aspire to be like has just reached or just done. And the money thing is a really interesting one, because like exactly as you've said, getting to 10,000 a month and getting to 50,000 a month, you are going to need different skills, different thinking, different things. But also you might have looked at how you got to 10 grand a month and gone, I don't want to do 5 times that. Or I've got people who work in my world who I coach, who they earn a good salary for what they do. They bring in a good amount of money, but they juggle their life with young children at the moment. So actually for them, they could earn more, but the payoff of that would mean they don't spend as much time with their children. And for them, that's not okay. Now, for me, I've always been much more business driven, much more kind of ambitious. And actually, I adore my daughter, but I now share it with her dad. So I don't have her all the time. So I can go when she's not here, I can work really hard and get my head down. So it's just, again, once you're confident that you go, no, actually, this is what I want and what I need. And again, this one client in particular, she knows this isn't going to be forever. She knows that her children are young. And in 5 years' time, it'll be a very different ball game. And therefore she could go after more work and more money and do things differently. But right now, she's really happy where she is, even if it doesn't look like she's earning the money that she could be earning.
No, I'm not a parent yet, but I've coached a lot for whatever reason. And I said, I truly think, and this is just me from an outsider, I think that as much as your kids deserve your presence, they also need and want you to chase your own dreams.
Yeah.
Because inside that, you're creating a belief inside them that's saying, hey, look at mom and dad, they're going for it, right? And I think too many times we use it as a crutch and say, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. Yeah, but like one of my favorite speeches I've ever heard is he said his entire life, his dad left at 4:30 in the morning. And after like 30 years, mom asked him, Dad, why do you keep leaving at 4:30 in the morning? He goes, I just hope that one day my boys catch me in the act of excellence.
I love that.
And it's like that statement like rang true with me, right?
And you're right. And I think, I'm a mum to a girl, and I want her to see that she doesn't need to get a job if she doesn't want to. She can do whatever she wants. And I often have a conversation with her, because she will say to me during holidays and things and go, why are you always working? And I'm like, well, first off, you're very lucky that I work from home, because if I didn't and had a job, I'd be shipping you out somewhere. So that would be the first thing. And 2, I love what I do. So I am very happy to be working, and I know I want to spend some time with you, but I do have to work. And again, and you're so right. And it's so hard for someone who doesn't have children to say to people with children that sometimes they use it as a crutch, because they will come back at you like
100%
fighting, right? Yeah. But you're right. Yeah. And I can see it and I can say it. But some people say to me, I don't know what I'm going to do in the summer holidays. And it's like, well, what would you do if you had a job?
Bring them in. Dude, I have 50 employees, right? At the current company. I let the kids come in and work with their dad and their mom. And they think I had them stuffing envelopes. We got them swag. They rode in the big trucks. They think it's the greatest thing ever. And I think they should do that more in companies. Yeah. It's fun. Yeah.
Totally. And I think, but also you can't just use that as an excuse. You can't say every time your kids are off, well, I can't work in my business. Well, you're not going to have that kind of business then, are you? You're not going to. And that's fine. If that's what you want, then that's fine. But just be understanding of your results. And then don't come back and be like, well, I couldn't, could I? No, you could. You just made that decision not to. And that's absolutely your decision to make. And you're the only one who could decide that. But then don't be sorry for the results you didn't get for the work you didn't do.
I have a good friend, been on the podcast twice. Mom of 3 boys. They just started their own business, killing it, right?
Yeah.
And she was having a real hard time about 2 years ago. And she's like, she knows me. She's like, you're doing all these cool things and kids are in school and, 3 young boys. And she goes, it hit me. She goes, my time right now is to be a mom, is to give them the thinking necessary so they can be great men. And when it is my time to do my thing, then I'll be ready for it. I'm no longer going to beat myself up for not being engaged in this business because I have an opportunity over here to be, this is important to me, my family. And she's found a lot of peace in that and be comfortable with it.
Yeah. And there's no shame around that. That's a decision that she's come to and gone, no, this is what's important to me right now. And also understanding that at that point in her life, of that season of her life, that's the decision she's made. That doesn't mean forever it's going to be that way.
We had one of the owners in town. So there's 6 owners, and they don't live here. I'm the only one that's here. And so we have a house here, and they came. And so they've been here all week, and she's got a 3-month-old, and she's younger, and one of the owners and his wife, and like she's worked for like Fortune 500 companies, like you name it, right? Like she's worked CEOs. And she goes, also, she goes, I thought I wanted to be a boss bitch and a corporate bitch, and I thought I want to be all that shit. And she goes, you know what? I just want a piece of land, and I want to take care of my kids. And she goes, I never thought I would ever say that in my life, ever. And she goes, on my second kid, she goes, my entire needs and wants changed. And she's still working, but she knows the income, the last, the result that she wants. And she's not beating herself up for not wanting those things. And you know what? 5 years, 10 years from now, that might change. We don't know.
Be different. Yeah.
But what I found is that we as people live in absolutes, and absolutes will ruin anything that you plan, right? This is the only place I'm supposed to be. This is the only person I'm supposed to be married. This is the only job I'm supposed to have. And unfortunately, in the world we live in right now, the actual word that means anything in business and life is called pivot.
Yeah.
This is a pivot world now.
Yeah. And obviously we've talked a lot about parents and children things, but that season of life could be you working on something yourself. It could be you dealing with something personally that actually means your attention can't be as firmly and strictly in growing your business as you would like it. But again, you have to go, do you know what? These last few months I've survived and I've not crumbled. And that is really key and important because I've done this thing for me.
So I'm going to ask you a question. So you started a business, you had a 4-year-old. Sounds like divorced. No? Yes.
I was divorced. Yeah.
Okay. Who were you then? Okay. Here's the perfect question. When you started when you started thinking about creating your business, right? Whatever that was, what was easier than you thought looking back on it now? And what was harder than you thought looking back on it?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I started my business very quickly. The kind of, small short story is that I went out, got drunk. My boss was out, same time, got drunk, and we bumped into each other and we had a row. And that is not me. Like I was a real people pleaser. So I decided.
Hold on. No. You just opened the box. This is amazing because you don't know that you're talking to a 20-year alcoholic, okay, who's sober now. So this is amazing. I feel like I'm having, no offense, and I'm sorry to lump you in together. I feel like I'm having an Adele story right now because I remember Adele telling a story of a fan being over there, and she got hammered and was like singing at the bar to the fan, and she's like, it's very embarrassing. So we got to unpack this bad boy. So because the same thing happened to me in a different context. So you go out and have some drinks, and your boss. You're not with your boss. So he has some drinks, but y'all run into each other.
Yeah. So I had got all these, there'd been a few things happening at work and I wasn't being appreciated as much as I would have liked. And obviously bearing in mind, I'd just gone through a whole, like my husband and I had split up. We'd been together 12 years. I got a 4-year-old. And weirdly, I was letting some of the work stuff really bother me considering I'd been through all this big stuff and you think I kind of wouldn't care less. And I went out and obviously drank too much and we bumped into each other. And we just had a blazing row because suddenly my drunk brain decided now would be an excellent time to tell her how I feel about stuff and how unhappy I was that she wasn't appreciating me and all this sort of stuff. And it was at that point that I thought I would never do that. Like even the drunk me, and I wasn't that drunk because I remember doing it. Like even the drunk me would have the respect to go, she's your boss. And I just didn't. So I thought to myself, do you know what? I need to think of something else. So I initially thought I was going to get another job. Couldn't find another job paying the money I was paying. Obviously, bearing in mind, I was single parent by that point. So I kept the house because I could afford the house because my salary was good. I kept the car. I kept all of these things. I had all these payments. So made this crazy decision because someone asked me how much I would charge them to do something that I was doing because I was employed as head of marketing. So it was a marketing job. And I gave them a price and they kind of went, yeah, sure, without even like batting an eyelid. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is really interesting, because what if I can get like 5 people to say yes to this and then I have my salary? So I think actually the thing that was the easiest, which now is probably one of the hardest things I find, was selling. It was like, but I think there was that motivation of I had no choice. I handed my notice in. She got wind of the fact that maybe I was thinking about starting my own business and literally told me to leave. So I had 1 week, like literally 1 week, and I had to start pulling in money. So for me, that obviously massive thing hanging over my head of you're going to lose your house and your daughter, like, you know, you won't be able to feed it if you don't earn money. So actually that was one of the easiest things for me to do back then, which when I look at it now feels madness, because that's normally one of the things that people find hardest. But I was literally like scrappy as hell, like getting out there, speaking to everybody, taking all the chances because I had no choice. I think the thing that was the hardest back then was giving myself even 5 seconds to think about what the hell is this thing I'm doing? How is it going to pan out? What do I want from it? So I think for the first year, I didn't even, which is odd now, this is exactly what I do for a living pretty much. I didn't even stop for 1 second to think, what is this business? And do I want this? And is this, I think for the first year, I literally was like, just bring money in, bring money in, bring money in, bring money in, pay the bills, feed my kid, like survive. And then after the year, I was like, I think I finally had a chance to sit back and go, oh my God, I just did that. Like, and I say from day one, I had to bring in £1,500 a month. Like
you're incapable of creating a vision for yourself within survival mode. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And it was literally what I was in. And then
but it's actually kind of amazing to vibe. That flow you're in is like, it's like a train. It's like, don't get in my way. Don't affect me having to feed my kid. And that's a scary prop when it comes to business.
And people say to me, how did you do it? And I can't tell you. I don't know, because I just did it because I didn't have a choice. And now sometimes when people say to me, when they come and they get coached, and I'm like, okay, so financially, where are we at? Are we at losing your house point, or are we at can't have some nice things point? Just so I'm aware, because, and not that I want to work with anybody when they're at the I'm losing my house point, but there's a big difference in motivation. And like I said, it's not that I want people to be in the situation I was in, because it was a really stupid, scary situation to be in, but I worked my backside off, and I wasn't afraid to ask for sales, and I wasn't afraid to go, I can do that. Can I give you a price for that? Like, and like I said, it was scrappy. It was really kind of, if I look back at it now, I'd probably like, how the hell did you last a year? But I did. And then suddenly I started going, okay, so I just did this for the last year. I can maybe breathe for a second. And then I started to do, okay, well, what do I want? Because also I ended up creating a business I hated, because I had all these clients and I didn't want all these clients. And then when I started to get picked up to speak, and I remember the very first time I went to the States and I was speaking on a big stage out in the States, my clients back in the UK were like, oh my goodness, you know, who do you think you are, basically? And I was like, yeah, no, this isn't what I want for me and my business. And then I was able to go, well, what do I want? And who do I want to be? And how do I want to show up? And what lights me up? And it wasn't until, like I said, a good 12, 18 months later that I started to do that.
And what did light you up at the time?
So it was helping. I'd worked with big corporate companies. I used to work for head of corporate for Land Rover UK. So I have done like big stuff. And I was working with companies who had big budgets, and it didn't make me happy. And I didn't want to do the work. I mean, I think that often comes. They don't
allow individualism. They don't do that. They don't do that. Yeah. And
also when you made a change, it was so slow to make, and it was so kind of like turning a tide, that by the time you came to celebrate the change, you never celebrated it because you're on to the next thing. And you just couldn't see the differences you were making. Whereas I would go to a small business owner. So because I started speaking, I'd go and spoke to small business owner, and then they would come back to me in 3 weeks' time and go, oh, I did that thing that you said. And look, I've got this. And it'd be like, that is amazing.
So I think you're really going to resonate with this. So we had a business plan that we built out back in last year. me and a couple of my buddies, and it's a 50-year business plan. I mean, it's detailed. I mean, the scope of the seasons, and it's all in there, right?
Wow.
After being here for 6 months and diving into what we're doing currently and actually like living inside of it, we actually changed most of the business model for the simple fact of this. If we were to buy companies in bigger cities, in Austin, in Nashville, Phoenix, etc., we would just be another notch in the economic belt of the thing. Yes, we would have a great company, and yes, we would treat people right and all those things. That would be ideal. But because we're in a rural area, and because we're in an area that's had some struggles in the past, every hire we do matters. Every person I affect, you hear it. Every client that we serve is appreciative. And we realize that if our true North Star is impact and to create generational knowledge and optimism and happiness, then we can't do that in a major metropolitan. We have to do it in what the actual fabric of America is, which is small towns.
Yeah.
Small businesses. Yeah.
And getting clear on, you've done exactly what we said. You've understood what you wanted. Yes, you could make money doing the other thing in the other places and bringing more money and probably easier, but that's not what's going to light you up. And that's not got the longevity in it, because it would just be like, yeah, cool, made another, bought another business, did another thing. And actually the impact and the, change that you can affect is the thing that's lighting you up.
When you, because this is hard, and this is the theme that I'm dealing with right now, with just in general in life and my clients, you left good to seek great.
Yes.
Right. Which is one of my favorite books of all time. And I'm about to reread it again, Good to Great by Jim Collins. That a lot of people don't. A lot of people live in comfort, and you had clients and they were easy. And to be honest with you, they probably had no idea what you were doing 90% of the time. They were paying money. It was great. I've been there. But you left for a struggle. You left for something that was going to fill you up more. How did you get comfortable with that as a business owner and an entrepreneur?
I think, again, that was such an interesting point in my journey because by this point, 2 years later, I was remarried. I don't know if I was remarried by that point, but I was definitely living with my now husband. My life again had changed completely from what it was. But I had come into this relationship earning good money. I came in, he knew me from the minute I had my business. So I'd always held my own. I'd always come in and matched him, like, pound for pound, as in he never had to support me at all. And then I started to see this online world, and I started to see the speaking, and I started to see the kind of where I could affect some change with smaller businesses. And I started to find the stuff that really lit me up. And I knew I tried to run both. I tried to start to build this side of the business, but it was having an impact on my current business. And I was just being pulled to that all the time, because obviously if I've got clients who need work done and they want to speak to me, then I really need to do that. So I got to the point where I approached my husband and I said to him, how would you feel if I sacked all my clients and basically started my business again? And weirdly, I think he had more faith in me than I did at that point, because he believed, and he'd seen how hard I worked. He'd seen what I'd been doing. I'd been speaking on these stages. I'd been showing up in all the right places. And he was like, you can do this. And so I did. I basically went to my clients and my team, because by this point I'd got a small agency and I wanted to keep them all on. So I was trying to find a way that I could keep them on doing things for me, but obviously they were being paid for by clients, and went to each of the clients and said, I'm really sorry, but I don't think I am the right person to serve you anymore. And I stopped working with them and worked on the small business and worked on my online business. And it was terrifying. And again, it was almost like I went through that, okay, I need to put my money where my mouth is now and get going on it and get working on it and really go all out to grow that side of the business. And luckily that was 7-ish years ago, and I'm still here, which is lovely.
One of my favorite sayings that an amazing friend of mine who coaches women says, sometimes we don't love ourselves or believe in ourselves enough to change, that we have to borrow the belief that others have inside of us long enough for us to believe it in ourselves.
I love that.
that's what you had to do, and it's what I had to do to get sober. It's what I had to do to start my own businesses. And I hung on to what successful, men in my life and my mastermind. They said, look, kid, we don't know what it is, but you got it, and just keep searching. Right.
Yeah.
And when I talk to you, there's not 1 ounce in your body that tells me you're not doing anything that you truly love. Right. You can see it radiates outside of you. Right. You could have made great money and you could have still been fine, but your soul wouldn't have been set on fire. Your heart wouldn't have been set on fire. Right.
Yeah.
Your impact wouldn't be what it is.
And you're right. And some days when it's hard, because it is, and especially COVID was super interesting for me, because it was like the first year of COVID, everyone wanted to do online stuff. So my business flew. It was just brilliant. But then the second year, and coming into almost like the third year of it now, everyone suddenly went, oh, I don't want online, but also they didn't want in person either. And it was a really tricky time. And we're kind of coming out of it now, which is awesome. But so even when things got hard, my husband would go, do you ever think about getting clients again? Because he knows, like, I could go and consult for someone tomorrow, a big business, and earn a ton of money. And I say to him, but I would, like, you say that, and I know the money would come in, and I probably would work less than I work now, but I am never, ever sorry when it comes to Monday morning. I am never, we had this conversation yesterday, actually. He retired from the military a few years back. And although he has an excellent job, it isn't what he used to do, obviously, because there's nothing like the military, I'm sure. But he's like, I hate having that kind of Sunday night, oh, I've got work tomorrow. I never have that. I wake up every day and I'm more than happy to sit at my desk, more than happy to do what I do. And for me, there was a quote. I co-authored a book, and it was just one of these things when like 10 people get together and they do a chapter each. And at the end of my chapter, I wrote this quote that I'd heard on someone else's podcast. And I'd love to say who said it, but I can't remember a name off by heart. But it was something like, if I have nothing more, or I am nothing more than I am today, could I be okay with that? Okay. And basically what she was saying was, if you had nothing more from now on, if this was all it was, would you be okay with it? And the truth was, I would be okay with it. It doesn't mean I don't want more. I do. I totally want more. I want bigger and better and more money and many more amazing things. But if this is all it was, would I be all right? And I would, because I love it.
I've interviewed so many people, and I think, and it's very successful people that made billions of dollars, successful athletes, you name it, right? Big people that own multiple companies. And people think that we talk about like business strategy and all that stuff. Like when we talk to them, 99% of the time, we talk about how they want all the things and they want none of the things at the same time. Yeah. And I think having the freedom in your own soul to know that you could leave it behind at any moment gives you the ability to keep moving forward.
Yeah. That is
right.
So good.
Like I'm going to be, and I mean this wholeheartedly, I'm going to be the best fucking dad you've ever seen in your fucking life. You have no idea. Like my son's going to be working in the business at like 2, like, like we're going to be like, I just, love it. And what I realize is I have a meeting with my owners later, and I had a mindset shift this week. I was like, dude, like we're over here and we're stressing ourselves out. And we have an amazing group of people together that have been through 250 years of business together. I'm 40. Most of them are 36, 38. One's 42, one's 49. I said, at 5 years, if we did exactly what we're doing today, and we put all of our energy in and we got focused and we stayed focused, how great will we be set up? And to know that we still have 45 years of our life to live. Yeah. I said,
could you imagine?
Can you imagine what that's going to be like? And he goes, well, fuck, when you lay it out like that, he goes, it's almost a knowing. It's not a hope.
Yeah.
And I realized that I had just like the epiphany that goes, okay, cool. So we're just going to go in, we're going to clock in. And I don't mean actually clock in. I mean, clock into consistency and live off my values. And I promise you, if I do that over and over and over again, we're going to create something special.
Yeah. And like you said, to have that kind of vision of, and this is where we could be in 5 years' time, like insane, but also knowing that you're enjoying the journey. Because I think that's the other thing. Like people just think, I will be happy when, I will be satisfied when, I will be successful when. Like I said, every Monday I get up and do not regret having to sit in my office and do what I do. So I am really happy in this journey.
When you have so much bad shit happen to you, like meaning you know your life is all roses. You don't know much about me, but when you have so much bad shit happen to you, you kind of just start laughing. Yeah. You're like, this, clients are crazy. Like my last year was insanity. Like clients are out of their minds. They go back on their words all the time, like all this stuff, right? Big clients, right? And you're like, why? I don't deserve this. And you realize in the moment, this is a true story. People think I'm so psycho for thinking this, but this is, maybe I was just done. Okay. I knew that I needed to get divorced for many years. Okay. We were together for 13 years. I was done 6 years prior. Okay. Mm-hmm. The moment that we separated, my first thought was, I'm going to help so many people with this time.
Yeah.
And it was like this calm came, and I'm not saying it was easy. It was fucking painful as fuck.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I go, okay, so be present in this moment, experience it. And I've helped countless men either stay married or get divorced and with peace since that has happened. And when you look at everything as an opportunity to learn and gain something, then you create something special here.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I know it's your podcast. I kind of count on myself. So when it came to the drink and stopping drinking, how did you think that from day one? And how long did it take before you then went, I can really help people with this?
So I'll give you the quick story because everybody's heard my stupid story for the nauseum. They're like, we get it, Austin. We get it. We heard on the podcast. So
I have
long story short. My dad was an entrepreneur, a very well-known dentist in Texas. And I have a clinical photographic memory. So I never needed to this podcast that you and I are having, I can pull it up 9 months from now and tell you exactly what we talked about. Right. So I never studied, right. I didn't study in school. I hated school, that was the whole thing. Well, I was getting in so much trouble in high school. They said, look, you got to go to military school or you got to go to Beaumont, Texas. And I was like, I don't know where Beaumont is, but that's not military school. So I'm in. So I moved out there. And within 3 months of that happening, my parents, who have never fought, came to me and said they're getting divorced. Well, The moment that they got divorced, I blamed myself for the divorce. And then that preceded me into getting addicted to cocaine, meth. I was homeless briefly. And then I sold wine and I was a master bartender for 20 years. So it was part of my life. You go to Burgundy, you drink wine. It's not a big deal, blah, blah, blah. Still working 80 hours a week. Very sophisticated drunk, And so I wasn't drinking to black out anymore, but I was drinking constantly. Right. So for 8 years, I think I had a drink every day. It was if it wasn't one, it was 3, there was never a moment that I wasn't drinking. And I joined a mastermind with 200 people in it, high level people that were in business, way above what I was doing. And I met a guy who was in GoBundance, actually, the men's group. And I was really lost. My marriage wasn't where I wanted it to be. I was lost. I hated my job. I was the best at what I did. I made so much money as a bartender and waiter, but I just, it was mediocre. It was ridiculous. And I was up one night because I couldn't sleep. And he put on Instagram, I rarely do this, just so we're clear. He charges $25,000, $40,000 a year to coaching. But he said, I have a moment and I want to do something nice. And I offer 2 sessions for $1,500 or something like that, which is unheard of for him. Right. So I talked myself out of it for 3 hours. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sign up. And so I put it on a credit card. I signed up. We do the one coaching session. It was great. And then we got to the end of the second one. And he says this to me. He says, if it was you 10 years from now, and you were in a room full of billionaires and you wanted to be there and you deserved to be there because you created something special, what's the one thing holding you back? And without even thinking, I said alcohol. That didn't create the stopping point, but it created the seed that got planted that started thinking, okay, well, maybe this is a bigger issue than I think, right? And so getting around the people that weren't in the restaurant business started me thinking. So then I started a company with 2 guys who were both 9 months and 13 months sober. And they said, look, if you've ever thought about it, try it. I'm not saying do it for the rest of your life, but just do it for like, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So I tried, I would try to go 30 days and I made it 26. And so then I had a drink and I got so upset because I didn't even like it. And I waited another month and then I tried it again. And what happened is I made it 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm like, damn, I feel really good. I was like, what would it look like if I made it to 90 days? Holy shit. And then I made it to 90. And then I was going to do a half Ironman. Then I made it to 6 months. Then I made it to 9 months, right? But I never talked about it ever because I didn't do 12 steps. I didn't do what I thought you were supposed to do. But I do have a military mind.
Yeah.
So, now we're going on almost 5 years. And I say to myself all the time, just keep chasing that feeling, that feeling of good, right? And the amount of identity shifts that I had to go through to rebuild who I was, the aggression and the anger to get divorced. So just so you know, I got laid off from my private equity job, got separated from my wife and started my podcast all in the same 10-day span.
Brilliant.
So COVID,
brilliant.
It was like bam, bam,
Huge
bam,
things.
bam, right? While I'm like in the process of getting sober too. So it was a lot, right? And this is what I truly think, because I've helped enough people get sober, and I've helped enough people that I feel confident saying this, and I have actual proof because I'm helping a guy who's 30 years alcoholic, get sober. Most of people getting sober has nothing to do with them. It's that they have to lose all the friends in order to get sober.
I bet.
And that makes the friends have to look at themselves in the mirror. So then they start getting aggressive, right? Perfect example. When I started getting sober, I had 3 guys, and I'm not talking about small guys. I'm talking about big mother effers try to fight me. And I'm like, this is the weirdest, like aggressive, like scary stuff, right? I'm talking about big mother effers, like on steroids, big dudes, right? And I was like, I was so upset. I was like, I'm not a mean person. I don't know what is going on. And I realized what it was. They were so angry that I was sober and they couldn't get sober, that they wanted me to be knocked back down to who they were. And the moment I realized that, you need to be nothing more than an example of what to live. You don't need to tell people how to live.
Yeah. And with anything, like, I think as well, starting your own business. I remember when I started my business, people were like really anti it. And they were really like, well, if it doesn't work, you can just get a job. And it's almost like anytime we make a shift in our life.
Break away from the herd.
Yeah. They do not like it. Like,
no.
Because all it's doing.
You're homeschooling your kids? Oh my God, you're a witch. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
it's like
anything. Yeah. We've got like amazing ideas to move.
Dude, here's a perfect example. Super easy. For the last 2.5 years, I traveled. I could tell you without certain, I got 30 plus DMs. Why are you traveling so much? Are you okay? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. But it's like the mirror just shines on them no matter what we're doing. It's like, oh, well, what does that say about me? And it's like, it doesn't say anything about you. It just says me and what I want to do and how I want to live my life and how I want to make a change. And not having to, like I said, we don't have to say we've done this thing and everyone else should do it. Not everyone should run a business. Not everyone should live on the road. Like, not everyone should do that. But I have decided to do those things. And therefore, that suits me in my life and who I am. But yeah, it's so fascinating.
What's interesting about what you're doing and what I think about all the time, right? And I want to share you, once again, we're on me. I'm not trying to hug the thing, but I want to share you my vision for my life, because I think that you will really resonate with it, because you're doing the same thing I'm doing. This is what I do. I consult for small businesses and small business owners. This is what I do. Okay. So what my dad does, that's a whole nother story. We didn't talk for 20 years. We now talk every day. And he does the exact same fucking thing I do for 35 years. Wouldn't you know it? Okay.
That's
Go
crazy.
figure. So I'm 70 years old. Okay. I'm 70 years old. So 30 years from now, I'm in Tuscany, Italy, and I've got my acreage and I've got my Airbnb clients who are staying in my little cottages, and I pick my vegetables from the garden, and I cook them breakfast, right? I used to be a cook, so I cook them breakfast. And then, I make, even though I don't drink, I still make my own wine. So they have a little wine, they go do their day. So I go leave and I go walk down to the market to go get the meat for dinner to get them ready. Okay. As I'm walking down the street, somebody yells out from across the street, "Holy shit, that's Austin fucking Linney." And then he runs over to me and I said, "Hey man, I don't mean to bother you." I said, "Hey, I'm sorry, like, thank you, but I don't know who you are." And he goes, "I know you don't know me, but you coach so-and-so, and so-and-so changed my life."
I love that.
Because I realized that we can only give so much one-on-one, but it's what we pass down to the people that we affect that then pass down something else that creates a ripple effect.
100%. And that's where sharing our stories and helping others with the things that we do and go through, coming from that place of service, is just so powerful. The money is almost the byproduct of it, but coming from that place of service and making it, like literally.
Do you know what I want to win? Best place to work award. They go, "Why?" I go, "Because if we do that, then we're going to be an amazing company."
Yeah.
You don't have revenue goals? Yes, we have revenue goals, but it's not my focus.
No, because the other stuff will come. Like, and if you don't have those things, they're the things that can also ruin it. So if you're not happy, if you're not enjoying it, if you don't have those visions, then you might end up with the money, but probably not in a way that you're happy.
We're going to put a gym at the company, right? Because we work early mornings, like we're in the trades business. Yeah. And everybody's like, "Oh, you're gonna tell your guys to like work out too?" No. What do you mean? I said, "No. Every morning, me and the COO, my vice president, are going to be in there slamming weights at 6:30 in the morning, and we're not going to say shit to anybody." He goes, "I don't understand." I go, "We're going to be slamming weights. They're going to see their bosses and the owner in there, and you best believe that they're going to start rolling in there and make sure that they take their health seriously."
Yeah.
You don't kind of tell them what to do. Yeah. You gotta tell them what to do.
Because they'll do that in their own good time when they're ready for it.
And
when
then they're bought in, truly.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Whereas if you're trying to tell them or say to people, "You've got to live like this," or "You've got to have this thing," then they're going to fight it every step of the way.
Me, you, I know that's you and I. We don't want
you try telling me what to do, and I am like,
you know what my fiance calls it? She goes, "You're like a mental patient in a straitjacket." She goes, "Until you tire yourself out, there's no chance," right? She's super spiritual. And she's like, "I wish you would understand that meditation and taking care of yourself would help you." She goes, "You're like a little straitjacket patient."
I've had some therapy for quite a while now, and my therapist says that we all have little parts of us, and my little part's called F you, Teresa, because basically if you tell Teresa to do something, F you, Teresa's going to come out and go, "I don't think so," and then we'll fight you on it. But but it's so interesting because that's what's made us and got to us here, and I never realized that
but it won't take you to the next place.
Yeah, because I needed that kind of fighty, scrappy little F you, Teresa, to come along. I mean, no, we are going to make a success of this. Screw everybody what they say to get to the point that I'm at. Like, we need all the elements of it in all the places.
But to take it from here to there takes two things: removing your ego and realizing that it's no longer about you.
Yeah.
The only way to have multiple companies, the only way to impact at scale, if we're going to have 30 companies, 1,200 employees, is I can be a part of the change, but I can't be the change.
No.
It's hard. It's hard for me because I can inspire anybody, but that doesn't mean you could go to 30 Tony Robbins events, but if you don't do anything with it, what's the point?
Nothing's going to change. Exactly. So, and we've got to have the faith that showing up and doing our thing, it will come at some point. Like, people will have, and we can't force that before the moment that they're ready. But as long as we're consistent and we keep showing up and we keep being that person, then people eventually go, "Oh yeah, no, I think I'm ready to try this now."
Yeah, 100%. So if people want to follow you, they want to follow your journey, how would they do that?
So probably the easiest and best place that I hang out the most is Instagram. So if you just search Teresa Heath-Wareing, you will find me over there.
Wonderful. Guys, if you got some value from this, send it to a friend, and we'll see you next time.